It's quiet, God, it's so quiet in our apartment now. The kind of silence that's so loud it rings in your ears. Tristan's favorite coffee beans, the ridiculously expensive ones from that little shop downtown, I can still smell them. His mug is on the counter, unwashed. Joel's Xbox controller is lying on the rug right where he dropped it mid-game. It all looks so normal. Like they just stepped out for a minute and will be right back, you know? But there's this black hole in my stomach, this cold, heavy thing that knows better. This isn't a pause button. This is the end credits, they're both gone, and I did this. I know I did, but my brain it feels like a movie I watched and I can't remember the ending. How the hell did it get this bad? To everyone else, Tristan and I were the perfect couple. Seriously, like something straight out of a damn catalog. You know those couples on Instagram? The ones brunching on a sun-drenched patio, laughing like they share a secret the rest of the world isn't in on. That was us. We had the minimalist apartment with the fiddle leaf fig in the corner, the matching cast iron pans, the shared Spotify playlist titled Simply Home. Our friends would say things like, God, you guys make it look so easy, and I'd just smile and squeeze Tristan's hand, feeling like a complete fraud. Because I have a history, a long, well-documented history of being the crazy girlfriend. My 20s were a highlight reel of tearful 3 a.m. phone calls to my friends, blocked numbers, and the stomach-dropping shame of running into an ex at the grocery store. My relationships didn't just end, they went down in flames. So with Tristan, this perfect, stable man, this deep, gnawing fear started to grow. It wasn't a sudden thing. It was a slow creep, a poison ivy vine wrapping around my insides. I was terrified that one day he'd wake up, look at the quiet, domestic life we'd built, and see a cage. And he'd realize I was the one who had locked the door. In my world, love was loud. It was screaming matches and slammed doors, followed by desperate apologies and passionate reunions. I'd convinced myself that the volume of the fight equaled the depth of the feeling, because the quiet that came after that always felt like the end, so I started testing him. I know, it sounds insane saying it out loud, but it felt necessary, like prodding a sleeping bear to make sure it was still alive. It started small. I'd forget his mother's birthday just to see if he'd get angry. He didn't. He just gently reminded me the day before, saying, Hey, don't forget to call my mom tomorrow, it'll make her day. No anger, no disappointment. Just a solution. It drove me crazy. Last month, I had a full-blown, screaming meltdown because he loaded the dishwasher wrong. The mugs were on the bottom rack. I mean, who does that? But it wasn't about the mugs, you know, it was a test. I wanted him to yell back, to grab my arms and say, What the hell is wrong with you? I wanted a real, passionate, we might break up but the makeup sex will be incredible kind of fight. That to my broken brain meant he cared, but he didn't. He just stood there, his arms crossed, watching me with this look on his face, not anger. Just this profound, bottomless exhaustion. He let me finish my tirade, waited for the silence to hang heavy and ugly in the air, and then he said, so softly it was like a punch to the gut, They're just mugs, Paige. Then he picked up his keys and went for a 2-hour walk. He didn't slam the door, he never slammed the door, he just left. He left me standing alone in the middle of the hurricane I'd created, and that quiet, his calm, I didn't see it as strength. I saw it as indifference. Every time he chose peace over passion, I heard a clock ticking down to the moment he'd finally get bored and leave for good. Then Joel arrived. Tristan's younger brother, fresh out of college and crashing with us for a few weeks while he job hunted. Joel is, well, he's the opposite of Tristan. Where Tristan is calm and measured, Joel is a golden retriever in human form, all clumsy enthusiasm and wide-eyed admiration for his older brother. He thought our life, our apartment, everything was the coolest thing he'd ever seen. He'd sit on our couch, playing video games, and just look around like he was in a palace. He was sweet, harmless, and he looked at Tristan like he was a superhero. The first night he was there, we all had dinner together. Joel spent the whole time telling stories about Tristan from when they were kids, how Tristan taught him to ride a bike, how Tristan stood up to a bully for him in middle school. He worshipped him, and Tristan, who was usually so reserved, just kind of softened around him. He'd laugh at Joel's dumb jokes and ruffle his hair. Seeing them together, it should have been heartwarming, but to me, it was something else entirely. It was a vulnerability. It was Tristan's one visible weak spot, and that's when the idea took root. It wasn't a conscious thought at first, more like a dark whisper in the back of my mind. I saw Joel, and I didn't see a brother-in-law, I saw a catalyst. I saw a perfect, walking, talking stick of dynamite. This horrible, twisted plan started to bloom in my head, fully formed like a toxic weed. I thought if I create a crisis, a real one, a big one, something so messy and awful that it involves his own family, then he can't just walk away. He can't just say, they're just mugs, Paige. He'd have to deal with it with me. We would have to fight and scream and cry, and then after all the smoke cleared, we would have to rebuild. Together, this shared trauma, this ugly, unbreakable thing between us, would become the glue. It would bind us together in a way that quiet Sunday mornings and matching coffee mugs never could. He could never leave me then. How could he? We'd have this scar, this permanent shared history. He would be stuck with me forever. It was a foolproof plan. I wasn't just going to burn the bridge. I was going to nuke the whole damn canyon so neither of us could ever cross back over. The plan went into motion that Friday. Tristan called around 6, his voice tired. Hey, something's come up at work. A server crashed. I'm going to be late, probably really late. Don't wait up for me. It was perfect. The universe was practically handing me the opportunity on a silver platter. My heart started beating a little faster, that familiar toxic thrill. I ordered our favorite pizza, the one with extra pepperoni that Tristan always says gives him heartburn, and opened a bottle of nice red wine, one we were saving for a special occasion. This, I told myself, was a special occasion. I sat down on the couch next to Joel. He was in the middle of some epic video game battle, mashing buttons, his face illuminated by the flashing screen. At first, he was barely paying attention. I just watched him for a minute, the wine glass cool in my hands. He works so much, you know, I said into the noise of digital explosions. Joel grunted something, his eyes still glued to the screen. I tried again, my voice a little softer, a little sadder. Sometimes I feel like I'm living with a ghost. That got his attention. He paused the game and turned to me, his brow furrowed with concern. What do you mean? Is everything okay with you guys? That was my opening. I started weaving this story, this carefully constructed narrative of a lonely, neglected girlfriend. I didn't say anything outright accusatory about Tristan, nothing Joel could call me out on. It was all suggestion and size. I talked about how quiet the apartment was, how I wished we were more spontaneous. I talked about how Tristan was always planning for the future, 5 years, 10 years from now, and I just wanted to live in the moment. I made it sound like I was drowning in the calm, predictable sea of our perfect life. I refilled his wine glass, then mine, then his again. It's just he's so contained, I said, looking down into my glass. I feel like I'm the only one with messy feelings. Does that make sense? Yeah, I get it, Joel said, leaning forward. Tris has always been like that. He keeps everything locked down tight. I could see the narrative shifting in his head. His eyes, which had been darting between me and the TV screen, started to just stay on me. He was seeing me not as his cool, put-together older brother's girlfriend, but as a sad, beautiful woman who needed saving. I put my head on his shoulder, a calculated move. You're so easy to talk to, I whispered, my voice thick with fake emotion. You actually listen, and then I did it. I lifted my head and kissed him. It was clumsy and wrong, tasting of wine and pizza and betrayal. The whole time, a part of my brain was just cold, clinical, ticking off boxes. Okay, this is happening. The bomb is being armed. He was hesitant at first, pulling back slightly and mumbling Tristan's name like a prayer, but I was relentless. I put my hands on his face and said, please, just for tonight, I just need to feel something, anything. I was the victim, the damsel in distress, and he was the hero. He was drunk and confused, and I led him by the hand to my bedroom, to our bedroom. The whole time, I wasn't feeling desire or passion. I was feeling a sick, powerful sense of accomplishment. The fuse was lit. All I had to do now was wait for the explosion. Tristan came home the next morning around 10. I'd barely slept. Joel had been a wreck all night, pacing the living room, whispering, oh my God, over and over. He looked like a ghost, his face pale and blotchy. I, on the other hand, felt strangely calm, ready. I had my lines rehearsed. I was going to be remorseful, confused, a woman pushed to the edge by loneliness. The sound of Tristan's key in the lock was like a gunshot. He walked in, looking exhausted, his tie loosened. He dropped his briefcase by the door and smiled when he saw me. Morning, he said, his voice raspy. That was brutal, I could use a coffee. And then he saw Joel, who was standing frozen in the hallway, looking like a cornered animal. The color drained from Tristan's face. He looked from his brother's terrified expression to my carefully neutral one. He didn't have to ask, he knew. The silence in the room was absolute. Joel just shattered. He started sobbing these horrible, gasping breaths. Tris, I'm so sorry, I am so sorry. I don't know why she said I was drunk, I'm so sorry. He couldn't even look at him. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times. In my mind, Tristan would explode. He would yell, throw something, maybe even punch the wall. I was braced for the storm, but it never came. He just stood there, his keys still in his hand, and listened to Joel's broken confession. Then his eyes moved to me, and the look in them, it wasn't anger. It wasn't rage or even hatred. It was something so much worse. It was a complete and total absence of recognition. He looked at me like I was a stranger, a piece of furniture he'd never seen before. He asked only one question, his voice flat and dead. Why? I launched into my speech, the words I'd practiced. I talked about being lonely, about him being distant, about feeling invisible. I tried to explain my twisted logic, that I did it to save us, to force a connection. He let me talk for maybe 30 seconds before he held up a hand, stopping me mid-sentence. Paige, he said, and my name sounded alien in his mouth. All I ever wanted was to come home to a quiet place, a safe place. I thought this was it. He didn't say another word to me. He walked over to Joel, who was still crying, put a hand on his shoulder and said, "Go pack your things, we're leaving." And just like that, it was over. No fight, no drama. No screaming match, just a quiet, surgical removal. He packed a bag with a terrifying efficiency, moving through the apartment we built together like he was a guest in a hotel. He took his clothes, his toothbrush, his laptop. He left everything else. He and Joel walked out the door, and the only sound was the soft click of the lock behind them. It was quieter than any scream I could have imagined. The silence they left behind was a physical thing. It pressed in on me, suffocating. For the first hour, I just sat on the couch, staring at the door, waiting. I was sure he'd be back. He had to come back. He'd cool off, he'd realize he couldn't just throw 3 years away, and he'd come back to yell at me, to fight, that I could handle. The silence, though, it was eating me alive, but the door stayed closed. Then the panic set in hot and sharp. I grabbed my phone, my fingers shaking so badly I could barely unlock it. I called him, it rang once, then went to voicemail. His voice, calm and professional on the recording, was like a ghost from another life. "You've reached Tristan, leave a message." I called again. Straight to voicemail, he'd blocked me. My thumb flew across the screen, a frantic, desperate dance. I sent a flood of texts, long, rambling apologies, paragraphs of self-hatred, desperate pleas, angry accusations. "How could you just leave? Don't I deserve a conversation? I did this for us, don't you see?" A single, damning gray checkmark next to each one. Not delivered. I tried every app. WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook Messenger, blocked, blocked, blocked. It was like I had been digitally erased from his life in a matter of minutes. In a blind panic, I called Jessica. My best friend, our mutual friend. I was sobbing, barely coherent, the words tumbling out of me in a pathetic, ugly rush. I tried to spin the story, to make myself the victim. I told her I'd made a terrible mistake, that I was just so lonely and he was never there and I didn't know what I was doing. I needed her to tell me I wasn't a monster. Jessica listened to the whole pathetic story without interrupting. When I finally ran out of breath, hiccuping into the phone, the silence on the other end of the line was heavy and judgmental. I was expecting sympathy, maybe an offer to come over with a bottle of wine and trash talk him a little. Instead, her voice, when it came, was cold, sharp, like a shard of glass. "Paige," she said, and there was no warmth in it at all. "What you did, that wasn't a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. You didn't just cheat on him. You took the one person in the world he trusts completely, his little brother who looks at him like he's a god, and you used him like a weapon. You planted a bomb in the middle of his family. Did you really expect him to hand you a Band-Aid after you stabbed him in the heart?" I started to cry again, to protest, but she cut me off. "No, listen, you always said you were scared he'd leave because you were boring. You weren't boring, Paige, you were his peace. And you just declared war on it. I have to go." She hung up. Later that week, drowning in eviction notices for the apartment I could no longer afford on my own, I started packing up Tristan's remaining things into boxes. It was torture. His favorite worn-out university sweatshirt, the stack of sci-fi novels on his nightstand, the little framed photo of us from our first vacation. Tucked away in his desk drawer, inside a folder labeled Anniversary Ideas, I found it. It was a printout from an online jewelry store. A custom order confirmation for a delicate silver bracelet, a tiny silver anchor hanging from the chain. The delivery date was for next month, for our 3-year anniversary. And below the image of the bracelet, in the section for the engraving, were the words he had chosen. "To my quiet harbor." I just sank to the floor, the paper crumpling in my hand. He didn't think I was boring. He thought I was peace. He thought I was his safe place to come home to after the storm. All those times he walked away from my manufactured fights, it wasn't indifference. It was him, desperately trying to protect the one calm place he had in the world. And I hadn't just wrecked the ship. I had detonated the whole goddamn harbor. It's been a few weeks now. I had to move out of the apartment, of course. I'm in some tiny, depressing studio now that always smells like my neighbor's cooking. My life has shrunk down to one single, obsessive activity: stalking them online. It's the first thing I do when I wake up and the last thing I do before I fall into a restless sleep. I made a fake Instagram account, a burner, just so I could see their profiles. Tristan's is private, of course, but Joel's isn't. 2 days ago, he posted a picture. It was him and Tristan standing by a lake holding fishing rods. The sun was setting behind them, turning the water gold. And Tristan, he was smiling. A real relaxed smile, not the tight, tired one I'd gotten so used to seeing. Joel's caption was simple: family is everything, always. They're healing together. They're fishing and smiling and being a family, and I'm the tumor they had to cut out to survive. Every post is a new knife twisting in my gut. A picture of a pizza box from their favorite place. A shot of their 2 pairs of sneakers by a doorway. Each mundane detail of their life without me is a confirmation of my own damnation. My finger just hovers over the screen, then compulsively I pull down, refresh, refresh, refresh. Nothing new, but I'll check again in 5 minutes, and 5 minutes after that. It's a special kind of hell, one I built with my own 2 hands, and I guess I deserve to live in it.